Hi everyone, this is Pamela, and for the ones that don't know me, I am from Venezuela. I am 32 years old, and if you want to know a little bit more about my story, why I decided to start this channel, you can check on my first video, and then you will realize about everything about me. And no further say, today's video is really special for me because most of the time I tend to focus more on the victim mindset of what they should avoid doing in order for them to be targeted for a predator, and why they act the way they do, the victims, and stuff like that. But today it is really important for me because it is more like focusing on what is behind the abuser actions, okay? And these are the things that, to me, or in my opinion, it is very necessary to know in order for you to have a better attitude toward a situation that implies you being abused, okay? Of course, walking away is always the best option, but knowing what it is behind those mean things that are done to you, it's gonna help you to process what isn't that you are receiving, and not take the things personally, okay? So I want to share this clip with you. I hope you enjoy the information, and most importantly, that being useful for you. I wonder about the psyche of the aggressor, the criminal, the sociopath, who would also sometimes come under my purview. Abusers often suffer from their own mental illnesses, a mood disorder that may make them more prone to irritability and anger. Both depression and mania can manifest for hanging, snappiness, and quickness to attack, especially when associated with insomnia. And in rather severe cases, psychotic paranoia can also contribute. Post-traumatic stress disorder, as sometimes seen in people in high stress, high-threat careers like military, can cause people to remain in fight or flight mode, leading to a chronic edginess and aggressive will to survive. An impulse control disorder may mean the person has trouble keeping wayward behavior in check, has repetitive compulsions exacerbating stress, a traumatic brain injury, or other organic brain damage, as associated often now with sports like football or boxing. May affect parts of the brain like the frontal lobe, causing disinhibition or mood changes. Addition to substances like alcohol can also strongly exacerbate these behaviors. Some research has conjectured that testosterone can also sometimes worsen violent, antisocial, and aggressive behaviors, and adversely affect empathy. Environment and learned behavior also contribute to abuse. Oftentimes, abusers have witnessed similar behaviors in their own families, and they inevitably imitate their original role models, male or female. They may harbor severe resentment towards the gender they attack because of unresolved issues with their own parent, who may have been physically or emotionally cruel or unloving. It isn't uncommon to end up identifying with the aggressor, an ego defense mechanism where you internalize the roles of a powerful figure in the family, because you see abuse and dominance as power. You see this aggression as the way to behave in your later relationships and jobs, as the best way to survive. Else, you be the one victimized instead. Kill or be killed is the only relationship language you understand. There is also the related issue of lack of ego strength. Why would someone need to constantly control and belittle someone else to feel better about themselves? Abusers sometimes come from backgrounds where they were often belittled or grew to lack self-esteem. Usually, the abuse is directed towards someone who will be considered weaker than them anyway. Someone who is vulnerable, like a physically smaller female who is often younger, less educated, or less financially independent, more easily manipulated. The abuser is a secret coward, never assured of their own power, even when they stack the deck heavily in their favor. And certainly, there can be male victims of abuse as well, with even more complex forms of shame and manipulation involved. Yet even with these biological and psychological insights as to what renders someone's vulnerability to become violent, I still wonder what goes awry in that key moment where someone decides to cross that line that most of us still recognize and appropriately flinch at its revulsion. Where someone lets loose with that fist, that belt, that weapon, decides to finally pull that trigger. Sometimes, I still think there is a greater moral question to be asked as well of an abuser. What is causing that blind spot that says hitting someone is okay? Perhaps there is a rush and thrill that goes with the transgression. There is a perverse regard going onto the circuits, that the kill has happened. It's not that different than other strange instances of violence we encourage in our society. Be it video games or aggressive sports or hurting or never-ending wars. Perhaps there is a still thirst of love that is gratifying, enjoyable, and it is a thin line to cross when it comes to then loved one who is easily and readily accessible, easy to hide. This line crossing may differentiate a sociopath from the rest of us. And yes, perhaps a level of sociopathy and psychopathy is ultimately part of the picture of an abuser. A lack of empathy and even an enjoyment of inflicting cruelty or pain, a disregard from the aftermath. And although many may tend to consider domestic abuse as more of a crime of passion or less calculated than your stereotypical cold-blooded murder, that isn't really the case. Oftentimes, there is a long-standing pattern of manipulation and control inflicted by the abuser. Their tactics are not fleeting or isolated. They groom and master their victims quite skillfully. They callous bursts of violence are part of a larger campaign to dominate and emotionally cripple their victims so they lose their independence and willpower to live. In this sense, given the high rates of domestic violence in our society, up to a third of women have been subjected to it according to a recent CDC study. The rates of sociopathic traits might be much higher than we realize. Sure, all of us carry some capacity of cruelty or violence. The age-old devil and angel chattering in our shoulder for control. Most of us keep our baser instinct in check. Circumstances and biology make it easier for the line to be crossed. Maybe we're closer to the precipice, but it's still your choice to release the monster. And it is a choice we must continue to acknowledge, to prosecute, and to vehemently condemn. Okay, like I said before, it is so necessary to know these things. There is something that I always remember about, the clip that you were watching. It is that somehow the abuser is a coward. And you need to understand that. That's why they always look for the weaker person in order for them to do wrong. And I want you to become and empower yourself, becoming a very strong person and empower yourself to not give these type of people a chance. Even though they have a really negative background, doesn't mean that you need to take wrong things from others. So I want to finish this video by reading this message for you. We need to encourage mutual respect in society and healthy role models for relationships. We need to promote love and forgiveness. But part of that involves recognition of a crime and abuse. not denial. Only when the act is acknowledged can the healing begin. So I want to always remember these things. When we acknowledge the abuse, when we recognize these negative things that are being done to us, we can easily walk away. Or most importantly, we can speak up into something like that. So if you like the video, if you found it really useful, I want you to subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to be more than open to listen to your suggestions about what other topic I can prepare for you, and I'm more than grateful to do it, and more than grateful for you to be watching my videos. So no further say, see you the next week, and take care.